Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the WITEE Chatterbots show as you continue your journey with us to become more inspired and connected. If you are new to the show, a very warm welcome. I'm Carmen Murray, your host, and we are coming live from Brand Live Studios, 27 boxes in the bohemian city of Melville. So the WITEE Chatterbots show, Women in Tech, Empowering Everyone, aims to empower you by interviewing a wide range of remarkable and thought-provoking guests to discover as we navigate through the constant change around us. So we will explore topics on business, technology, innovation, and marketing, and give you a bite-sized insight that can help you propel forward a successful business in this entrepreneurial culture. So today I would like to welcome Cole Rapp, who is also the managing director of 21st Century Group. He is a very talented man, and he actually used to be, this is a very interesting fact, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but he actually used to be an architect. And he was involved in the MTN Innovation Center and creating that building that we see today. That's a landmark, if I can put it that way, and bringing digital and creative together with the architecture background makes you a formidable force. So I'm very excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, Carmen. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you for such a great introduction. It's nice to be working with you, and we've had a long history together. Like you said, the digital space within architecture certainly became quite a big thing. 3D animation became a very formidable force back in the day. That building was also put together 15 or 20 years ago. So 3D animation was quite a very big digital jump in that space at the time, and we decided that we were going to do the marketing and so on for the to actually win the account. We were going to present it as a 3D environment for the CEO of MTN to look at.
Awesome. That is amazing. Well, listen, I think this is why it's so awesome to have you here, is to talk about how to fuel creativity and inspire innovation. And maybe we can have a very collaborative chat about how we make these things happen.
Sure.
I mean, where do great ideas come from? How to get the mind refilled, because I think inspiration is very important, because if you don't fill your cup all the time, and I keep on saying that, if you don't fill your cup,
absolutely,
how do you produce and get exciting things out there? Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think as a starter, I'm going to do something crazy.
Sitting here with us.
Okay, so I have a unmatched sock with me this morning.
A very bright unmatched sock.
A very bright one, and it's got like skeletons on and little flowers.
Pink, and says feet by.
I don't know what it says, but anyway, what I do want to say is, let's flex the creative muscles a little bit. Let's look at this sock and look how we can create social value, creative value, and commercial value out of this particular sock, and see what we can come up with. Okay. Right. You go first.
Okay. The first thing I thought of, you're sitting here with your Apple Mac in front of me. So I was thinking what you could do. The sock has got skulls on it.
Yeah.
So I think what we could do is we could cut these skulls out.
Yeah.
And then you could make yourself like a wallpaper that you can then glue onto the back of your Mac. And then if you really do this well, you can do 1,000 of these, and you can start selling these things, because everybody will want
But it's unmatched socks, ne?
Well, then we'll just have ponies and skulls and other things all glued together.
Okay. Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
one idea.
So would that be commercial, right? Okay,
Yes.
but we're not allowed to come up with something obvious now.
Okay.
So let's try and
No puppets.
No puppets.
Okay.
Okay. So let me think.
Social value.
Social value. I think what I would do with this, since it's got skulls on it, is think of something that I could maybe use a lot of unmatched socks, and I can create skulls, and maybe talk about killing the environment. And, by wearing one of these skulls that's cut out of a sock, because we tread our feet onto the soil of the earth,
Yeah.
as a social impact, like buy one, and to say that you represent protecting the environment because we're killing it with pollution and all of that.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be a way of driving social change.
Yeah. So pick up your socks.
Pick up your socks. There you go. Okay. What could you think of? One more.
Immediately, because I've got a daughter, she would love to use this one sock maybe for something in her hair. So maybe like I've seen them, they like almost weave it into their hair so that it's like a fashion accessory.
Nice.
Something like that, or something to make the hair curly. So I see they like put it into their hair, and then like when it's wet, then you can put the sock inside the hair.
I like that.
And
That's
then
very
afterwards,
different.
So it could be like a fashion hairstyle thing.
Cool.
So I know she'll enjoy that kind of thing.
Love it. You see, this is now a perfect example. We flex the creative muscle.
Yeah.
What we did here was we literally took the non-obvious answer to the question.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens when we brainstorm or when we sit in board meetings is we always go for the first thing that comes to mind. And the thing is, you need to learn to almost do that Russian doll effect.
Yeah.
Where it's where you open up the Russian
Yeah.
doll and extract and extract and extract so that you can come up with these ideas and not think of the obvious thing first. Although this is a very simple thing, but I mean, once you start understanding how to apply this in the creative space, then you can learn, how to apply it with bigger ideas.
Absolutely. And I think, when you're sitting together with another creative person, you spark each other's energy. So as soon as you come up with an idea, it sparks my energy. I start coming up with ideas, and then you kind of formulate a solution out of all the different ideas. So you kind of build it up as you're going along. So it's almost like a form of, working out the things that aren't going to work until you find the thing that is going to work. So, I think that's, it's an important part of the process.
100%.
Like an elimination process.
Yes. And I think collaboration, to your point, I think is very important because you might sit with a piece of the puzzle that I don't have.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, for example, if we had to combine or join forces on something, it's like I come maybe with a strong technology background, you come with a strong creative background, and how can we bring those worlds together? And it's always good to have different people work on different things. But it's not just, with people that are experts. I think it's important, like if you work for a big organization, you've got call center agents and you've got receptionists, get them involved because everybody sits on an idea.
It's very true, yeah.
One thing that is so important is like when you look at the history of innovation, like every idea, there was like 100 years in between every idea, every big idea that happened. So now we live in an age where daily our ideas can collide. And we can get to the solution faster and we can make an impact quicker.
Absolutely.
So let's look at ways of how to gather inspiration.
Okay.
What would you say is one important way, to gather inspiration to fill your cup?
So, like you were saying, curiosity is certainly the thing that's got to drive that gathering process. So you've got to be online, searching trends, have the people that you follow, see what they're doing, how they're collaborating with other people. I really use the various platforms to gather as much creative inspiration as I can. And also not just to see what they're doing, but it helps you to think of what could be the next trend and how could we utilize that, within our South African context. Maybe they're doing something there, but if you turn it into something that would work here, it's really gathering that information on a constant basis, whether it's Instagram or how people are interacting on YouTube. The various YouTube stars are now starting to collaborate with each other. So it's really looking at like how do those people constantly innovate on a constant basis.
Yeah, because innovation is adjacent, right? So it's all connected in some way or the other. If you look at, for example, exactly what you just said, Usher says this great. He says, create something of substance from substance.
Absolutely.
I would like to call it don't copy, but simulate, innovate, elevate. Like if you see something that really inspires you, how can you take it to the next level? I also think one thing that's absolutely paramount in gathering information is documenting it.
Yeah.
So, for example, do I have a Spark file? So where do I type when I see a link or I read something that's really of interest to me? I don't know where it fits in yet. I've started doing this, but it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of discipline. When I see something I really like, is I go and create a slide, and say, okay, right, there's something here. I saw this stat or I saw this interesting insight that I really think there's some great insight behind it, and I create a slide out of it.
Okay.
What kind of ways do you use to try and gather this, library of inspirations?
Yeah, I mean, I have an inspiration folder on my Mac, and I try and just fill it up with as many different things as I can. So whether it be fashion, whether it's architecture, whether it's even just a poem that you find that might be inspirational.
It's true. I love that. Yeah.
I try and find things that may not be part of the project that you're working on at the moment, but just always constantly looking for, like we said earlier, the elimination process. So if you're starting to I like your idea of putting things into a presentation already, because then you start eliminating all the groundwork that, you do the groundwork first. So that by the time you're at a point where you are using your final idea, you've really fleshed it out, through your process of elimination. So I think it's a great idea to actually start building your presentation, because for me as a creative, it's sometimes the creative juices don't just flow from the word go. You really need to sit and go through your process of analyzing, sort of feeling
and
your way through it.
researching.
And you do a lot of research, and then sometimes you take 2-3 days to come up with it, and then that last 2 hours before the deadline, you suddenly spark, and then everything happens. But if you've done all the groundwork beforehand and you start putting the content into like a visible format, it really helps you to define what you're trying to reach from a creative point of view. So I really like that idea that you said, and I use that a lot within my process as well, is to, you really have to sit and start somewhere. And even if it's the smallest little thing, like trying to decide what to do with a sock, it's really nice to, you really need to follow your process all the way through, and eventually, like after some time, the creative part comes.
Yeah, because ideas only start forming once you start working on them.
Absolutely.
So this is where great ideas come from. Is also not leaving them in your inspiration folder. But actually working on them and identifying, what I, for example, also like to do is when I have these folders and so forth. It's like, I mean, I love that you said like poems, because I can get the inspiration from the weirdest stuff, and I think my husband thinks like, this woman is crazy, but I can get oh my God, this is so amazing, and he just looks at me like, why? But I think the curiosity is important, but it's also important for you to review as you drive through this or navigate through your inspiration folders. Like, okay, once a month I have to go through everything and see if there's something that sparks an interest on something that I'm working on now, or maybe I've the one thing I read in a book that really inspired me was, there's no such thing as procrastination in creativity. Because you constantly, the moment you, for example, as an accountant, when you have to do the books by this particular point in time, your brain switches off that creativity side of it. The moment that you've ticked the box and you've done, it's out of sight, out of mind. So you move on to the next project. Where if you are writing a book, or you are working on an open project all the time, or you are painting a painting, look, you need to decide at some point when is good enough and when you can end the project. But it's a constant flow of creativity that happens, that brings the results of that particular innovation or product or whatever it is. And
I think it's just, as you're talking now, it really is living that creative part of your life on a day. Like every moment is about creativity. So I know for me, everything is about photography. I think I drive everybody crazy because I'm always taking photos. I'm constantly building a library, even if it's just for, if it's for family or whatever it is. I'm taking different kinds of photos. I'm always trying to find something, inspirational to shoot, because it's just part of who I am. And I think that's an important part about being a creative is, if your day-to-day habits should just involve that creative element in it. So if you're taking a photo, try and take the best photo that you can.
I like that, and also the fact that curiosity once again, which we've mentioned before, is something that really gets this going. So I would like to talk about Will I Am. I was listening to this podcast where he was talking about, about with Oprah Winfrey about obrigado, which is a Portuguese word, and then you also have the obrigado, which is the word that we use, the Portuguese word obrigado, and then it's also used in China as the same word. And he was like, why is this? And why is this happening? If you think of Indonesia, they use the word pisang. And in Afrikaans, we also use pisang as a word, and it's the same meaning. And we are, like Asia and Africa, are so far removed. When you go into their museums, they have African art, and you're like, why? How did this happen? Like ancient artifacts. And that made me realize, okay, there's some connection here. Let me investigate. Okay, the Dutch colonial migration, everything that happened, this is how they inherited some of the language, and this is where the cross-culture thing is happening, and it's understanding how those worlds connect, and chance favors the connected mind. So that curiosity is important. What are your views on for example, like Vaynerchuk, or somebody that you are really passionate about?
So what you were busy talking about now, I suppose it leads more to kind of who are your heroes in the industry, and I'm quite impressed with what Gary Vaynerchuk has done. He started a media agency. He started his whole YouTube career selling wine, and it was really he kind of became famous because he looked at the environment differently, and he built an entire platform for himself out of nothing. So it's learning how to use your platform in a way that nobody else has used it before, and being creative about that. And he's quite an inspiration, because the volume of content that he puts out on a day-to-day basis is inspirational within itself. If you look at anything, he's on LinkedIn, he's on Instagram, then he's on YouTube, then he's done 5 YouTube clips,
trailblazer.
And then he's gone and he's done an inspirational talk somewhere, and then he's in his car and he's making a phone call, but even that's recorded. Like, those kinds of things are quite inspirational, because the level of creativity you need to operate at is quite something. And for us to maintain that same level of creativity is quite it has to be quite impressive. So
no, I totally agree. And we're actually going to pick that up now. I'm going into a quick ad break, and then we're going to continue the conversation. Welcome back, everybody. You're tuned into the WITEE Chatterbots show, Women in Tech Empowering Everyone. And we're sitting here with the legendary Cole Rapp, and we are talking, well, we're not rapping, but we're talking about, not yet. And we're talking about how to fuel creativity and inspire innovation. And we're just having a chat on, having a curious mind, gathering inspiration, ways of where you can, keep the
creative juices flowing.
Listen, I'm not good at ad-libbing. Listen, and I think also it's very important to understand, once you get inspired, what do you do with that information? So, how do you move away from imitation to inspiration? And really, I like to say, don't copy, but simulate, innovate, elevate. When you see somebody do something amazing, how do you take that to the next level without being corny, if I can put it that way?
Yeah. So within the business that 21st Century Group does at the moment, we're a media company, and part of the objective is to fuel that creativity within Africa. So how do you then go to different countries? They've all got a similar story. So if you maybe took music, for instance, as the platform, music is so different in different cultures and different countries that the story is very different in each one. So how do you go to each of those countries, and then you tell that story on a global level, but really bring the essence of that story out. And music is so true to people's soul,
especially in Africa.
Yeah, specifically in Africa. And it's really about how do you sort of elevate their story, but in a creative way, because so many people have tried it before, and it's really about, you've got to find a way so I've encountered a lot of these guys in the industry, and everybody's fueled with this creative flair at the moment, and there's this energy around it. And I think it really is about like
putting your antenna out, and you
Yeah.
just feel like this heap of energy.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
around this energy around like in the air, literally, and these guys are like really trying to put something else out into the world, which I find inspirational because, I think there's been a tradition of Africa as kind of putting out content that's not so great. But what I've been seeing at the moment is a real turn in how people are producing content and what they're putting together.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see that there is this massive energy
Yeah.
around, specifically creatives and African
And
creatives.
localizing the content.
So, that for me is
idea.
quite inspirational from what I've seen so far.
So one thing I really like to do is case studies, for example, is something that I've inherited this name called the Ideas Whisperer, like case study whisperer, because I promise you, I spend 8 hours a week just going through the internet, reading, trying to find inspiration on ideas and case studies. But the important thing is when you discover these things, it's localizing it because it has no meaning if you look at what other people are doing. But ideas are evolving. I mean, I think there's like thousands of ideas that people are executing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So it's impossible for any person in their lifetime to come up with more than 2 or 3 new ideas, except if you're Elon Musk. But I think it's important that you have to look at what other people are doing and then see how you can actually localize it with your insights and how you understand the continent. They talk about Africa renewal, where we are moving now into an age where, we are proud to be African. We want to see more local content. Look at Black Panther. Like that went like a fire, because Disney was telling an African story, and creating it from an African perspective. It's not this cliche where we take a Cinderella story and we just copy and paste it. And just the narrative is so important. So I think this also leads itself into where we need to also understand and tap into cultures and understand how to blend our creativity with cultures, right?
Absolutely. And what I've seen specifically out of the Africa context is the talent that exists within Africa is absolutely amazing. Trying to get an international sort of flair going is not necessarily the right thing to do. The African continent has got so much talent within it, and it's really coming to life now through the platforms that people are giving Africans to have a voice. And for me, it's inspirational to see that those people are bringing that voice in a very professional manner. They're very creative. They've got a lot of great ideas that the rest of the world haven't tapped into yet. I think the kind of audience that you have within Africa is also a new audience, and you really have this new start to something really great within our context. So creativity really can play a massive part in this whole story. And that's what I really like about where creatives are coming from.
But also innovation. Yeah. I think innovation can also be, I think we're probably one of the most innovative continents to arise. We're seeing a lot happening. And I mean, if we look at even homeborn technologies that we have, a lot of these things were created out of a need to solve African problems.
True.
There was actually something somebody shared with me the other day, which was quite phenomenal. They had black charcoal, like pods, that it was created here. Was it oh no, this is a different idea. Sorry, there was this company in South Africa that created this idea by taking larvae from flies.
Okay.
Right, and they took that and they spread it on the grass because they have a lot of protein, and they spread it over the grass to get it to the herds and to the cattle, so that they can feed off that, because they actually dry out in the sun and then become probably like Rice Krispies, I would suppose. And then
Fly
you could
Krispies.
Fly Krispies, and then you could actually, the animals eat from it, and it actually makes sure that they get the proteins within their bodies. And this is a massive disruptive innovation that's going across Africa and the poorer countries to make sure that they can feed animals in a sufficient way, to keep the cost down, which I think is quite amazing. I mean, like, for me, that was like, ew, but at the same time, ew, like that's great. But there was another one with black charcoal where they just land them out of an airplane, and there's a seed in it. So when the rain comes, it just dissolves, and then the seed actually it becomes the soil around it, all the nutrition, and then up comes these plants for agriculture. So it doesn't necessarily need to be technology.
Precisely,
so there's ways of how you can solve it. So how do you protect your ideas? This is the question that I want to know, because it's great coming up with great ideas and being collaborative, but in the same breath as
and it's difficult coming up with those ideas first, and then well, should I put it this way? Like, you don't want to be seen as a copycat, and then stealing other people's ideas. So, like you say, trying to protect your ideas is always like the most difficult part, I suppose, in the creative process. But I think, getting that creative idea out into the world first, I suppose, is one of the biggest things that you need to do. So it's really understanding what kind of platforms can you use, how can you integrate with those platforms realistically and quickly, to kind of build a community for yourself so that you've got somebody to talk to. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, if I have to go back to him as an example, he put so much content out there that, it's impossible for somebody else to copy him, because he has stamped his mark on, like,
and he's one step ahead of the game.
Yeah. So I think that's a very important part, is you've got to be one step ahead of the game. And as soon as, what I've always tried to do in the agencies I've had before is you've always got to be one step ahead of the trend. So, being innovative in a digital environment, you've constantly got to look at new digital capabilities, like virtual reality, for instance. How can you incorporate that? And as soon as virtual reality has come in and everybody's doing that, then what's the next step after that? So it's constantly trying to stay one step ahead of the game. And you only get that by constantly educating yourself, constantly being curious about, how are these technologies coming about and how can we utilize them? So, for me, protecting your idea is more around always coming up with the next idea first.
And I also, just further to your point, I think it's also very important when it comes to also coming up with ideas. I think you need to also keep in mind to be frugal. Like, if you talk virtual reality, like probably $1 million just to try and get a small proper project off the ground by creating various content, because you don't want somebody to have a HMD and have all of that, and there's only one piece of content to engage with, because the longevity of that won't live for longer than probably a week. But I think it's important to also have a frugal mindset. Like, how are you gonna protect your ideas, fail fast, take those things to the market, but at a low budget, learn the learnings. Like, if you look at Facebook, they started it at Harvard and was internally only for the students. It was very successful, and then it started bouncing off into the communities, and then it grew into this global phenomenon. So phenomena. Oh, phenomenal. Don't knopen. But anyway, like those are just the important things to also take in considerations. Like, you don't want to go and say, okay, right, so I'm going to come up with this amazing idea, and it might be a great idea, but if nobody can, you want to get your ideas out in the market. You want people to say, okay, I'm going to put 100K on the table. Let's go for it. But if you're going to come with ideas that are all 1 million, 10 million, 20 million, and the proof is not in the pudding, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, and I think it's also, most of these ideas are around a simple idea. It's something simple and it meets a need. And if you can't spend 20 million rand, you're not meeting a need. I always say that form follows function. So the function has to happen first. And then how it looks is what attracts people to that functionality. So the functionality is really the planning and how your idea is going to come to life and how it's going to exist and live. And you can throw R1 million at an idea, but if it's not functional and simple,
utility as well,
specifically in today's technology age, digital age, everything is quick and fast and happening at such a rapid rate. You know, you have to be able to be top of mind, but people look for something that's quick to use, easy to use, and quick, you know, like something that they can catch onto very quickly. So, you know, if it's not making your life easier, then people aren't really interested in it. So it's about those kinds of things that I find, you know, really makes an impact.
And you know, I think it's also so true because if you think about Pokemon Go, for example, you know, that thing, I mean, how much? 100 and they made a lot of money from it, but it didn't last very long. There's really not a lot of utility to it. It's more about entertainment, but it did put augmented reality on the ground. And here we're going on to a tech rant and rave now. But the important thing about the lessons from that specific innovation, I think they really had to go with a good instinct, but I think they spent like $20 million in order to build Pokemon Go, and it took them like 20 years. Because they had to get Google Earth and all of these locations to plug into it. Now, everybody of us don't have, first of all, the funding to make that happen. And by the time, if you have to wait so long for your ideas to go out into market, somebody else is going to steal it from you. So I think it's important to come up with stuff that you can kind of prototype before you put it out into the market. I don't know what it was for, but there was this guy was prototyping something. It was almost like an iPad kind of thing for the office, and what he did was he used 3 weeks of his day and he created a wooden block and he put a white piece of paper and he knew he could build it. That wasn't a problem, but he pretended that this was his iPad. So every time when he was setting up a meeting, he was pretending to take this wooden block out and he would like tap and go and tap and no and whatever and like do his thing. People must have thought this guy has lost it. Like he's crazy. But then at the end of the day, what happened was he then discovered there's more functionalities that he should work on, etc. And I can't remember what it was called, but it's similar to an iPad, but he apparently launched it and it was a huge success. So I think it's important to go through that as you say, the elimination phase, right? With prototyping.
Yeah, very much so. And you know, you only get to that point if you're constantly working away at it. You know, the many people only see the overnight success, but more often than not, it's 10 years in the making. So you really need to, you know, people don't always see the hard work that went behind the scenes into something. And, you know, at the end of the day, creativity is hard work. Like, you've got to put the effort into it to make it look a certain way, to make it function a certain way. So, you know, it might be a simple process just to put a white piece of paper on a block, but for that guy, he used that as an elimination process of what can and can't work, and it could have taken him, you know, a couple of years to figure that out, but at the end of it, he really got an insight into what the best solution would look like.
I love that. You know, as you just to conclude the chat, you know, one thing that really resonated with me, I was watching, so just to give an example of you know, being inspired, I was watching a show called Touch, and it was on Netflix, and they had this opening about these ants, and these ants were forming a raft on the ocean, these red fire ants. And the reason that they do that was through trial and error. So the ants have a lifetime of 60 days.
Okay.
So for them, it's all about thinking of the future, preparing for the future. We always wonder, like, why the hell are they always like moving the food, and they move so fast, and how do they always know where to be? You'll leave a piece of food and they're there because they leave chemical trails behind. They teach their children or the little ants as a community, as a group. So it's all about that cross-pollination. It's about the collaborative sense. And the reasons why I'm so fascinated by ants is because when there's a flood, they form a raft, and this raft has got 500,000 ants on it. They protect the queen on top, and they leave air pockets in between to keep it floating, and they can float it for like 3-4 4 months.
Wow.
When Hurricane Katrina happened, there was thousands of rafts of ants floating.
Wow.
And this is their survival skill. Now, they don't have a long life that they live forever, but they're paying it forward to the future. And they're constantly finding ways to make sure that they grow their next generation.
Yeah.
And I think this is also where I think it plays a very important role in creativity. I mean, I'm busy working with a client on an innovation hub. And, working with those kind of things is that, you need to have so many people coming together as one, forming this raft that floats onto the ocean so that you guys can find ways of teamwork and collaborating and making a success of an idea.
Yeah, I really like that. Power in numbers, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like that is, I suppose it's around not being scared to fail, trying a number of things. As a creative, you've got to be quite prepared to really try out anything, give it a shot, see if it works. You're constantly creating something new to see, where can this take you to the next level. So I think it's about not being scared to fail. And eventually you'll get that draft, you'll get that solution that works.
Yeah.
And
that
it's
will
really
carry
about,
your idea.
Yeah, and it's about trial and error as much as you can so that you then eventually find the best solution. I like that draft idea.
So let's build the innovation raft. Well, okay, in tradition, we've got a 1-minute show where we're going to just ask you questions and you're going to answer it for us. It's not a 1-minute show, but it's more of you entertaining me and our audiences. Okay, so I'm going to start on your marks, get set, go. If you could have a dinner with a Formula One driver, which one would it be?
Michael Schumacher.
Okay, if you could ask Alexa anything about yourself, what would it be?
What's your favorite food?
Okay, what's your favorite food? Why
What's
don't you
my
know?
favorite food?
Okay, if you could be a rebel for a cause, what cause would it be?
Saving Yorkies.
Okay, what are you most likely to become famous for?
Sure, that's a difficult one. Riding a Formula One car.
Okay, clearly a racer. Okay, if Google was unplugged for a week, what would you do?
Go on holiday.
Okay, wow. Okay, well, what are you most likely to sing if you had to be on X Factor?
Sure. I did it my way.
Okay, what is your sign and why?
Taurus.
Taurus. Okay, what's your favorite? Oh, it's done. Okay, 60 seconds are over. Listen, it was very interesting. I must say, I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Cole, for coming in. And I mean, just in summary, for those of you who listen in, curiosity is very important, guys, in order for you to inspire your ideas and really gathering your inspiration. Flex those creative muscles, apply inspiration, try and simulate and innovate, and go and collect and become a great mind that find a way to build it and make a change in society and in your own life, because you just need one great idea. You don't need to be a creative director. But now I'm just going to close off and say we'd like to thank Brand Life Radio for the innovative container studio for making the show possible and listening into our shows. We can also find all of the shows on Castbox or iTunes when you search for Booyah by Carmen Murray. Please rate our shows to help other people find it. And don't forget to tune in next week. Same time, same place. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.